All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr previewing Tuesday night's matchups in SEC basketball. Doing them all in one video, Max. We don't always do that, but efficiency here as we're
Yep.
going to talk about all four of these games. What do you know? A nice split this week, 4-4, as you have 4 on Tuesday, 4 on Wednesday. So talk about Tuesday games. We start with Florida at Georgia. That one's going to take place 6 p.m. Central on the SEC Network. We've seen this game once this season. That one was in Gainesville, as we know, was not kind to the Dogs, as it was Florida winning that one 89-59 on January 25th. So they play a month later here. If you go back to that game, the big story was, well, just Florida doing Florida things. They turned Georgia over a lot, had 18 turnovers, did the Bulldogs in that one. Florida led, by the way, as many as 36 in that game with about 9 minutes to go in the second half. So it was completely one sided. And yeah, I mean, that too, Max, was kind of like when Florida was healthy at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they had some injuries since then, but they've also had an addition of Micah Logden. We know the setup for Georgia here. They just need to win games to try to stay on the bubble at this point. They've lost 4 in a row, now sit at 4-10 in league play. The rest of their remaining schedule at Texas, at South Carolina, home against Vanderbilt, those wins will do something for them, but obviously there'd be nothing like getting a win over the number two team in the country if the Dogs could pick up this one.
Oh man, do they need it? They're sitting right now on, I think, either the first four out or the next four out. They're right on the outside of the bubble there. This win could quite literally change the entire season here. Probably going to be a high single digit spread. I don't think it'll be out in double digits, but I don't think it's going to be low like 6 or something like that. Somewhere high single digits, which is a winnable game. That's a very winnable game. Even though Georgia had the 30-point loss to Florida already, they've got 4 SEC wins. All 4 are at home. Georgia does not play too bad at home. They did just drop the game to Missouri at home by 13, but before that was right there, could have beaten Mississippi State. So if Georgia does make maybe it's Blue Cane that makes a few threes, maybe Newell makes a few more threes like he did last game. But if Georgia can get some offense going, if they can, which is a big if, if they can, with a high single digit spread here, Georgia at home playing, literally they know, hey guys, we win this game, we probably just clinched our whole entire season on the line right here. So Georgia's going to be playing probably the hardest they've played all year. I think this is
Well,
going to
yeah.
be interesting, Blake.
I was gonna say that too. Like I think it certainly is more interesting than the first matchup. Like you feel like it
Yes.
is, it's different. Georgia has played well at home this season, as we've noted. Florida, it's had some couple games on the road, whether it's a South Carolina game, whether it's that LSU game for a little bit of the stretch there, where sure at times, you could maybe look up and say, well, not played as well. But then it's like you flip it the other way and you're like, well, they've won at Auburn. They got the best win of any team in college basketball this season. They went and just sort of took it to Mississippi State. That game wound up being a 13-point game, but like we said, really didn't feel like it was that close
Yeah.
from that perspective. But we got a nice win in Arkansas a while back. So I think that's the thing. With the Gators playing as well as they've been playing, even in this kind of matchup where they go on the road, play a Georgia team, and remember, we are adding in sort of that desperation factor for Georgia where this is a season-defining game here if you
Yes.
win this one. Can Georgia find enough and be able to be able to win a game like this? And I think it just always goes back to the offense for me. You know that. I just bring up the percentages like Georgia 299th now in turnover percentage, 251 in 3-point percentage, 211 in free throw percentage. So from that standpoint, I think it's the same story here, Max. Can Georgia get to the free throw line, which is kind of what we've always talked about with them? They need to make their offense easier, especially against a Florida team that defensively, we just keep saying. I mean, it was not that long ago people were wondering, is this team good enough defensively to win, an SEC title, a national championship, something like that? That feels like forever ago because we've just seen them really turn it on. Now they have not allowed more than 68 points in their last 4 games. Mississippi State had 68, South Carolina 67, Oklahoma 63, LSU 65. And quite honestly, of all those teams, I mean, is Georgia that much better offensively than any of those 4 right now? Probably not.
Yeah, Florida's they have the number 4 offense right now, offensive efficiency on KenPom. Their number 1 category, though, is their offensive rebounding, 10th in the nation. Georgia in the SEC, dead last in defensive rebounding, which is kind of surprising given they're one of the tallest teams. However, it's kind of because of that defensive philosophy, selling out for the blocks, which leaves the offensive boards wide open. That's going to be, well, if Florida's able to take advantage, which I would assume they do, that could be absolutely killer. You're at home, you play 30 seconds of good defense, and then there's Ruben with the rebound, kicks it out to Will Richard, and there's a dagger that you just crushes you after you played a good possession of defense. Stuff like that is, I think, what could get Florida over the hump here, just because, you are playing a team that is going to be playing. We throw that around. It's this team's Super Bowl. It's that team's Super Bowl. I don't call it whatever you want. Georgia's going to be playing their hearts out in this game.
All right, let's get the picks.
I'm not going to lie. If someone picks Georgia here, I would call you crazy, but I love crazy. I would love that crazy pick. I think there's something to it, the desperation spot. I think there is. Florida, the way they've been playing, I can't pick against them. Give me the Gators.
The only issue potentially, I think, for the Gators here in terms of the setup, we talk about like the number of ways they can score, but they have been a team too, 3-point shooting wise, that gets a decent chunk of their points from there, right? And we mentioned Georgia from the 3-point line defensively. It's been pretty good. The last 4 games they played, and they've lost all those games, keep in mind, which may swing you even more in Florida's favor here to say they've held teams to this, and yet they've still been able to, still haven't been able to win games. 6 of 20 for Mississippi State, 6 of 20 for Texas A&M, 6 of 22 for Auburn, 9 of 29 for Missouri. None of those teams have shot better than 31% from 3 against Georgia. Even a couple games before that, right? South Carolina, they held to 24%, which South Carolina's not a great offensive team. Arkansas, they held to 13%. So we've talked about Georgia on the defensive side. Maybe Kentucky and Oklahoma are great examples too, a month and a half ago. Kentucky 6 of 25, Oklahoma 7 of 27 from 3. So I think that's something where if you're looking for your path for Georgia, continue to be pretty stingy on the perimeter in terms of your defense, top 15 nationally in 3-point percentage defense. Make Florida try to get in there, and score, which, like we said, I think that's what you're looking for. Florida's not a team that's going to get the free throw line a lot, so make them score in ways that aren't just, all right, they're making threes or they're just cleaning up the offensive glass. If you can do that, it becomes a lot more interesting. I think it's much closer than the last game, but like you, I would have a hard time picking against Florida here. So I will pick the Gators in this matchup as well. All right, 8 p.m. Central, ESPN2. Alabama hosts Mississippi State. This is a fun one, rematch as well. We've seen this one back on, it was January 29th. Alabama won that game 88-84 on the road in Starkville. That was a game where Alabama had one of their hot shooting performances of the season, 15-31 from 3. And, of course, I'm sure we're going to talk about that when it comes to the actual breakdown of this matchup. And Mississippi State's perimeter defense, a little bit different than Georgia's this season. That was also the Josh Hubbard game where he went for 38 points in that one there. Meanwhile, we look at kind of the state of the two teams now. Alabama got the bounce-back win against Kentucky after back-to-back losses to Auburn and Missouri. Mississippi State dropped the game at Oklahoma, but don't let that take away from the fact that they beat Texas A&M at home 5 days earlier by 16 points. So kind of a, one that I think is a little more interesting maybe than we thought it'd be, especially after Mississippi State hit that rough patch a couple weeks ago, Max.
Oh yeah. Can we get the same game? Can we just get the same game again? That was one of the best games of the year so far. Just trading blows. The KenPom projection on this one is 89-80. Anytime you get a projection and both teams are expected to score in the 80s, oh man, sign me up. Looking back on that first matchup though, one area that we haven't covered yet was the turnovers, because that's been an area of Alabama's defense that we've been getting on, is they don't turn anybody over. Mississippi State, 18 team assists, only 9 turnovers. Alabama, also 18 assists, but 14 turnovers. Season high 7 turnovers for Mark Sears in that game. That was not one of his cleaner games. The past 4 games for Mark Sears, 2 turnovers, 4-2-3. So he was challenged by Nate Oates in a post-game press conference. I remember Oates specifically said, like, we need our veterans to start taking care of the ball better. Sears has done that. I'm going to be interested to see how that looks this time around, Blake, because one way that Mississippi State was able to get those easy threes was transition and quick offense from those turnovers.
Well, yeah, and I'm just going to keep going back to the same thing that we've kind of talked about as the theme for Mississippi State in conference play. It is just how many points do they allow from three? And we said, I mean, they had a couple good performances against Ole Miss and Texas A&M, although maybe throw the A&M one out a little bit. I mean, they're just not a good shooting team, as we know. But, on the road, held Ole Miss to 6 of 24, 25%. Oklahoma comes back, goes 11 of 26 for 42%. So you're kind of back to that same number here. And an SEC player, even let's just say all the way back since January the 11th, after they started 2-0 with wins against South Carolina and Vanderbilt, Mississippi State has allowed teams to hit double-digit three-pointers 8 of their, 12 games, I guess, since then. Oof. So that's just a lot of threes. Now, you can look at the 2-point percentage and say, well, what about that? Well, those numbers haven't been particularly great at times either. And so I think from that standpoint, when you look at it, I mean, they're still top 100, I guess, in 2-point percentage defense. They're 297th in 3-point percentage. But I think that's been the difference, right, with this Mississippi State team. We just said there's been a few more defensive lapses, I guess you could say, than we would have expected with this team. And that's where, with Alabama, what's the story we've said all year? They're not shooting the three at the percentage maybe we would have expected them to shoot it. But if you look at the last, couple games, 13 to 31 at Missouri, 42%, 11 to 31 against Kentucky, 36%. They had the 17 to 29 at Texas for 59%, and even some games before that. Those numbers have gotten a little bit better now for Alabama, and so you feel a little more confident in them kind of going off from three at times. And this is one where if you just look at the matchup, like you said, Max, if you go back to the previous one and we talked about it, 15 to 31, I mean, yeah, like that. I just give Mississippi State guard on the perimeter. If they can't, then Alabama at home seems like a perfect recipe for them to have one of their vintage, 17 of 39 type performances or something like that.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to make my pick on this one. I think we got this matchup nailed pretty good.
Let's do it.
So when you look at the point distribution, like you were talking about for Alabama's defense, I think Mississippi State with Keshawn Murphy, he had 18 points last game. I remember he was a big factor. I don't know if you can expect another Hubbard performance like that, but I think there is something to Keshawn Murphy and what he can do inside against Alabama. However, Blake, I just think with the way that Mark Sears has been playing, I think the turnover margin is going to be much smaller than last game out. Is Alabama going to shoot the absolute lights out? Probably not as elite as they did the first game, but given Mississippi State's perimeter defense, I can't really trust them that much. I'm going Alabama here. I just trust that offense, that perimeter offense a little bit more.
Alabama has won 7 in a row in the series history between these two. Mississippi State has won in Tuscaloosa just once since 2008. So that's a long time. 17 years they have just one win there in Tuscaloosa. Since then, that was 2016. They won 67-61 in that matchup. So, yeah, I trust Alabama more right now. So give me the Tide in this one. Yeah. All right. Tennessee hits the road to play LSU, 8 p.m. Central tip, ESPN, or on the SEC network, that is. This is one that, maybe a little more interesting than meets the eye. LSU's been playing better as of late. We know Tennessee coming off of back-to-back wins. They've hit a hot stretch since the calendar turned to February. 5 of 6 they've won, and a nice win at Texas A&M where they got a big one in College Station. Meanwhile, LSU won a couple games with the win at Oklahoma, home against South Carolina before. They lost at home to Florida, but don't let that final score fool you. LSU, I thought, played a pretty good game there. Had to, come back, got the lead against the Gators there in the second half. Florida winds up winning by 14. But LSU did have an 8-point lead in that game with about 15 minutes to go. So, I don't know, Max. This is maybe a little interesting just from the standpoint of LSU's playing better. Tennessee, coming off of A big road win at Texas A&M, two teams kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum in the SEC standings. I could see a hangover effect here potentially for Tennessee.
Almost certainly. Look back to Ole Miss. LSU had an 11-point lead with 3 minutes left. Against Florida, LSU had an 8-point lead with 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
The home game sandwiched in between that. They crushed South Carolina 81-67. You look at the past 3 games for LSU at home, they have been dang good. They've been really good at home. And a big reason why is kind of this rotation being ironed out. Matt McMahon has moved Curtis Givens, the freshman, into the main role ahead of Jordan Sears. He's 4 inches taller. He's a little bit more physical. The defense has improved. And then getting Victorious Miller healthy, of course. And at the 5 spot, the freshman Robert Miller has been really good. The heaviest guy on the roster for LSU at 225. So LSU, I do like what I've seen out of the lineup. However, with that, Blake, they've moved a freshman into the main role, leading the charge here. Any clue who he might be guarded by?
Who do you think is going to be guarded by in this game, Max?
Oh, maybe just the best guard defender in the nation.
That's a tough matchup, to say the least. Yeah, I think Zakai Ziegler is someone who we said. I mean, Tennessee, one of the reasons they're playing as well as they've been playing as of late. I mean, just look at Ziegler and all the things he continues to do for this team. And, not just the scoring, but we mentioned all the other things. Just his awareness on the court, the leader, the assist numbers have been ridiculous, the steals, all that. But, I still will always say with this particular team, let's say they find themselves in a tricky sort of spot against LSU. LSU's playing well. What's going to be the difference in this game? I mean, to me, it's still pretty clear. Like, it's Chaz Lanier. And I mentioned, one of the reasons maybe you're not predicting a 30-point breakout performance against A&M, other than the fact that A&M is just a great defensive team, was when you looked at the home road splits. Like some players sometimes, especially maybe shooters, the numbers aren't always there. We mentioned some of the performances, 10 points on the road at Kentucky, had the 10-point performance at Auburn, like scored 10 at Florida, 17 at Vanderbilt. So, like, these are not bad numbers, all things considered, but when you're the guy who's expected to kind of be that burst scorer at times, like Lanier is for Tennessee, you want to put him kind of in those sort of positions. And so I think, again, this comes down to one where would it shock us if Tennessee came out a little sluggish and maybe LSU is still kind of doing what they've been doing recently. They come out and get off to a good start and are able to maybe have a halftime lead or at least keep it close, something like that, going into the second half where you feel like you've got a shot. I still think it's Chaz Lanier is going to be the guy who probably takes over the game. And to me, that's really what this comes down to is can LSU defensively do enough to prevent that Chaz Lanier sort of just complete breakout performance part, whatever now, in double digits. And can they do enough scoring-wise too, right? Like you said, like when you have Ziegler guarding you, it's much different. And when you have like a team like Tennessee defending the way they do, that's the thing. If you're trying to figure out an upset formula for LSU, it's just not very easy to do.
Well, I may help you out here, Blake.
Okay.
LSU's 3-point defense has been percentage-wise, middle of the pack in the SEC. Volume-wise, they have been very good. Past 5 games here, and this is Ole Miss, Arkansas, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Florida. So you get a mixed bag, a few good shooting teams, a few mediocre shooting teams. 6, 4, 3, 7, 7 are the total made threes they've allowed in their past 5 games. Just last time out against Florida, they allowed 7 of 22 for 31.8%. They've only allowed double-digit threes one time in conference play. They do a really good job at limiting threes. So, hey, maybe, what does this game look like if Tennessee finishes like a 6 of 25, a 6 of 28, something like that from 3, and Lanier, maybe Lanier's 3 of 8 from 3, right? What is Barry? Hey, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something to this.
He's on a roll right now. So I'm going to let you make your picks, Max, and I'm going to see what Barry wants me to pick here.
Man, as we are diving through this, I am liking these Tigers more and more in this matchup. I really am. And that's coming off of a live power rankings where I just talked for 5 minutes about how I really like what Tennessee has been doing the past few weeks. I'm seeing some things here with LSU's perimeter defense, with the physicality where they can frustrate Tennessee's offense. If anyone out there picks LSU, I admire you, because I am not a man enough to do such a thing. Give me the Vols. However, if that spread is out there at like 10, 11, which Ken Palm's predicting this thing, give me the points with the Tigers.
All right, I'm going to do a quick pick here. Tennessee, because I don't think Barry's going to allow me to make a lengthy pick based on his current bargaining habits. But maybe he's trying to tell us something. If LSU wins, remember that it was Max Barr and Barry both at the same time. We're like, hang on a second. This may be one we need to look at. All right, but I'm going to take Tennessee in this spot.
Tennessee.
All right, and we wrap up with Missouri hosting South Carolina. That one going to take place 8 p.m. Central on ESPNU. The Josh Gray revenge game, one would say, Max. I guess the question is he going to be playing in this game?
Yeah.
What was the reason he didn't play on Saturday? It all runs together for me.
He was sick.
That's right. So maybe you would think he's going to be good to go for this one. But yes, so the Josh Gray revenge game here. Of course, South Carolina coming off their first win of the season. Got the big win at home by 15 against Texas. Now hit the road to play a Missouri team coming off that loss at Arkansas, but still, all things considered, didn't think this has been the theme we've always kind of said with Missouri, really since that Texas game a month ago. Even in the three losses, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Arkansas, I don't think we came out of there being like, oh man, Missouri just played awful. Maybe the start of that Texas A&M game, but that was really about it. I still am like Missouri. To me, their stock continues to go higher and higher, even when they lose some games, just because I think the overall performance has been fantastic. And we can't forget that, earlier in the week, last week, they beat Alabama 110-98. So seems like a tough spot on paper for South Carolina, who, Max, as we've noted, been a little bit different on the road than it has been at home. If you look at their past road performances, 14-point loss to LSU, 21-point loss at Florida, 23-point loss at Kentucky, 11-point loss at Georgia, 20-point loss at Oklahoma. That's their last 5 road performances in the SEC.
Yeah, South Carolina's scoring high in SEC play on the road is 67. They have not scored more than 67 on the road so far. And I bring that up because just of how incredibly efficient Missouri's offense has been. I think that's the main. We can pick apart this matchup all we want. Front court, Murray Boyles, the turnover forcing Missouri defense, the three-point shooting. But honestly, when you look at the grand scheme of things here, Blake, I think it really comes down to, can South Carolina score enough points? Because they haven't done that on the road so far. This is a Missouri team who just can beat you from 3, beat you from the free throw line. They've got guys in the mid-range. They can beat you anyway on offense. South Carolina, a bit more one-dimensional with the free throws and Colin Murray Boyles. Can they keep up?
Yeah, let me give you the last 5 home scoring performances for Missouri. 110, 82. They had 64, of course, against A&M. A&M and South Carolina, a little bit different defensively, I think. 83 against Ole Miss, 83 against Arkansas, 75 against Vanderbilt. So Missouri scores points. South Carolina, as you just said, does not score points on the road. At least they haven't this season. They struggle to find that same form that we've talked about that has been very consistent at home. But on the road, it's just been a different story. And so I think for South Carolina, maybe it's sort of Missouri coming off a loss is maybe not where you wanted to catch them necessarily, because that is something where I think when you look at the potential for them to bounce back, go back to, let's say, the Illinois game, right? They lose that one 3, neutral court, come back home, beat Alabama State by 17. All right, that's non-conference. Lose at Auburn, come back home, beat LSU by 16. Lose at Texas, come back home, beat Ole Miss by 8. The Texas A&M loss at home, that's their only 2-game losing streak of the season to this point. Knock on wood, Missouri fans. They come back home, beat Oklahoma by 24. So I think they've done a good job responding this season. Let's make our picks. I think we know where we're going, but that's something else, too, that I think you look at in Missouri's favor.
Yeah, Missouri, obviously, number 1 in the SEC in free throw rate, getting to the line. South Carolina was the same thing last year as well. Number 1 in the SEC in defensive free throw rate, not putting you on the line. So, okay, say Missouri doesn't get their usual points from free throw line. How does South Carolina defend the 3-ball on the road? The past 2 road games against LSU, 13 of 30, 44%. Florida, 14 of 28, 50%. Mizzou gets it done here. They score more points.
Yeah, South Carolina also turns the ball over, as we know. And I think that's something where when you look at some of the turnover numbers, Missouri likes to force those. Like South Carolina had 17 turnovers at Georgia. They had, I think, 18 at LSU. Games like that maybe tell you a little bit something. Missouri's high scoring prowess at home, plus the turnovers, I think, are the difference here. So I will pick Missouri in this one as well. But let's tell you quickly about our friends at BRACKETBIDS. We keep saying if you want to take your college hoops experience to the next level this March, you can do it with our friends at BRACKETBIDS. Enter that into that free pick'em contest. Start an auction draft league with friends, family, or coworkers. Everyone starts with the same bidding dollars. Up to you to outwit and outbid your league mates to secure the teams you think will go the distance. Choose from multiple scoring models, including upset bonuses to reward the bold picks. Track your teams with live in-game scoring and watch the standings shift in real time. The further your teams advance, the higher you climb the standings. That's how it works. For league play, use that promo code SE16 for 40% off. SE16, 40% off. Download the BracketBids app today or visit them at bracketbids.com. We'll have you covered with reaction to Tuesday night's games, of course, here on the channel. We'll have predictions coming up for Wednesday's matchups as well. We appreciate you guys watching. As always, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll talk to you soon here at Southeastern 16.